thank you so much for joining us for this installment of Magically Live, where we'll be talking about using accessibility audits to your advantage. Joining me today, I have two of Magic EdTech's wonderful accessibility experts, Erin and Charveen. Erin, would you like to go ahead?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Erin Evans. I'm our Director of Accessibility and Solutions here at Magic. I'm located in the United States. I live in South Florida, and we are very happy to have you today to talk through audits and how useful they can be. Tarveen?
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. It's really good to see people across the globe joining the session. And myself, Tarveen, and I head entire accessibility practice at Magic EdTech. I'm based out of India. Welcome to Magically Live series again.
Alrighty, so for those of you who don't know, Magically Live is a series of events that we're hosting in which we'll pick one accessibility topic each time and take a deep dive into it. So just some housekeeping before we begin. If you have any questions, you can use the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen, and we'll address them all at the end of the session. If you do need or want closed captions, the CC button is enabled, so you can go ahead and click that at the bottom of your screen. And I think that that's everything, so we can go ahead and get started. Charveen, can you talk to us a little bit about what an accessibility audit is?
Sure. First of all, we all need to understand that this is not the need of the hour. This is something that should be factored into your entire process. And when we say why, like what is an accessibility audit, it is a step that is backed into your entire workflow or process to ensure compliance. Accessibility audit actually helps you evaluate, finalize where are you today and what path you need to follow to meet the compliance. Accessibility audit helps you uncover or give you a high-level review of your product compliance, where exactly you are and what steps you need to follow to ensure the compliance you are targeting to. Accessibility audit is just not a bug report. It is a detailed information around what is the issue, what is the impact, which guideline is failing, and what is the user impact and why it is important to fix. And along with that, it gives you a high level recommendation at code level where exactly the issue is failing and what needs to be fixed. So accessibility audit is a step that enables you to be future ready. If you start today, don't start late in the cycle. If you start today, you'll be future ready. It will help you more targeted audience. It will help you cover billion of people. It will help you enhance your product usability, accessibility, and compliance. So that's what an accessibility audit is.
Thank you so much for outlining that for us, Charveen, and for telling us why they're so important. All right, so now I think we have a poll question for you. Why have you/your company engaged in an accessibility audit? Choose all that apply. The first option is to understand our technical compliance. Second option is to see if we are compatible with screen readers and other assistive technologies. The third option is it is a requirement of an RFP. And the fourth option is we've never done an accessibility audit. So we'll give you a minute to go ahead and answer those. Right, so it looks like most of you answered to understand our technical compliance, which is amazing. All right, Erin, can you talk to us a little bit about why we engage in an accessibility audit?
Absolutely. To build on what Tarveen had just said, a really important reason to engage in an audit is to really understand where you are so that you know where to go. An audit is not a good or bad. You're not looking for good or bad. You're just looking for where am I? You're trying to get the data so that you can understand how to move forward in a strategic way to become more compliant and more accessible. It's really important for you to get that state of the state to understand what you need to do next. And part of that, what do you need to do next, comes from what are those issues that are defined. So as Tarveen was mentioning, you'll get a whole set of information on where are the bugs, not just a bug report, but what is the impact? And truly understanding that impact will help you to put together your strategic roadmap. So for example, you may have a lot of images on your website, and those images may be really important to you and what the message is that you're sharing. And you might find that those images do not have alt text. You may also discover through an audit that your header structure is not in the correct order on that same main section of your web page. So then by finding out this information, it allows you to prioritize how to make the fixes. So because those images could be the more important thing, you may decide to spend the first amount of time in your strategic plan to add alt text to your images, and then go back and fix your header structure. So that's just an example of how the information can be used to help you build your go forward plan. It's also really important because it helps you to have data that you can take to your main stakeholders as you are talking about the need to build in accessibility compliance within your program and within your company. It gives your financial stakeholders, your executive and C-suite team, the data on what do we need to do, what's the impact on our cost, how will this benefit our company. And a lot of those higher level decisions are very data driven. So by being able to say, these are the places that we are blocking people from being able to get to our content. If we fix those, more people can get to our content, higher return on investment, better for everyone. Most importantly, it's there to help your product teams understand what can we do differently in our workflows and how do we need to change our methodology so that when we build products, we know how to be taking consideration for users of all abilities at that time. And another reason that the audits are helpful is it helps your sales and marketing team or your teams that are talking to customers be transparent and just give the message to say, hey, we're not fully compliant. That's okay. Here's where we do align for users of all disabilities, and here's the path we're taking to get to a more compliant product. We've found that the most important thing is trust and transparency. So if you are upfront with your clients and say, this is where we are and this is how we're going, that shows the commitment that you're willing to make as compared to just saying, we don't know, or, it's everything is fine, but there's no data to back that up.
Absolutely. Erin, can you talk to us a little bit about what happens during an accessibility audit, the process?
Sure. So what we have on the screen here is a diagram, is a circle diagram that shows a couple of the different steps, high-level steps that happen during an audit. So typically, and Tarveen, feel free to jump in. Typically, what is the best way to start is, you're a product owner or you own the website or whatever needs to be reviewed, and you would engage with a company that can do these audits, and you would do a walkthrough. Explain the strategy, the process, the different personas you may be testing. If you're thinking about this being an educational product, what does the student perspective look like versus a teacher versus an administrator? Or, what are the different people that have access? You walk through what the product is, and then you want to have your auditors have complete understanding of the process. Tarveen, do you want to take it from step 2 forward?
Yeah, sure. So thank you so much, Erin, for covering everything. And this is a 6-step process that we follow, and Erin has covered the step 1 rightly. When we move to the step 2 and we have performed and reviewed the product along with the product teams, you need to ensure that auditors actually perform the assessment using the best practices. When we talk about best practices, you need to understand what type of product you are picking up. Do we need to perform a thin slice audit? Do we need to do a templatized approach? Or do we need to test or review the product using the defined set of 80 tools and technologies. So this is the step where you ensure that you have picked up the right set of tools, right strategies put into place. The auditors are well versed with the entire scope, and you also understand all the nuances of the technology, product, tech stack. Everything is being delivered in a proper format to the auditors to help them start with the audit. Step 3 is when auditors review their findings along with the product teams. This is the step when you go through the list of non-compliances that are being reported by your auditors. So the report should actually talk about and help you prioritize or deprioritize the items in the list. As Erin rightly said, that there could be possibility of something that is core on your website but is not meeting the compliance. So you need to understand that, do we need to pick up as a priority 1, or is it okay because it's a medium priority issue, we can cater it later. It's user persona, product, and the targeted audience that you are targeting. You need to prioritize what you need to pick up for the remediation. So this step is very initial because you help your developers, your product team understand that the audit that has been done is done for a reason, and you need to ensure that by fixing all these non-compliances will help you reach at a level. So what needs to be picked up when and how is you should be working along with product teams to enable them, because we have seen that the core dev teams or the product teams don't have in-depth knowledge around accessibility, how exactly issue needs to be fixed. So you need to play that vital role to ensure that you pass on that information to enable them start with the remediation in a way we want a product to be a compliant product. Step 4 is when engineering team starts with the remediation and actually start fixing the issues, is the place where you work along with them, and might be you can ensure that the accessibility consultant is involved along with the engineering teams to help them throughout this remediation process. Accessibility consultant can help them build solution documents of the complex problem statements they come across. You can have LE architect or a senior engineer who can work on the what solution to be implemented, how, what is the strategy should be done. Is this a component that is widespread used across different products? Should we build up as a one core component and then use it across different logins? All that needs to be done along with engineering team. Step 5 is when we review all the remediation that has happened. Is it absolutely okay, working as per our expectations? Do ensure that in this entire workflow, you have people with disabilities involved. We recommend having people with disabilities involved from step 1, and they have a vital role to play till step 6. When we say like step 1, they are the ones who will give you exact real user experience. They'll be the one who will be giving you the real user feedback at the audit stage. And while doing the final review, ensure that the product is being traversed and information is being perceived by native testers without any support. At that point, you can say, yes, I have a compliant product. Final step is step 6. I know we move between 4 and 5, 2 to 3 times in the entire cycle, which is absolutely okay. But once we are done, everything is closed, we have finalized, okay, these are the issues that we are fixing right now, but this is what we are deferring, will cater to the next release, but our MVP is ready for the release and is compliant, which is okay. Now start building on a VPAT. So VPAT, we'll talk about VPAT. VPAT has different versions, different complexities. Try to understand basis the product which VPAT version we want to pick up, and then ensure accessibility consultant is working on the VPAT because he or she is the one who will be giving the stamping. Always ensure you partner with a renowned accessibility auditor or an accessibility company, service-based company, because you need to have a stamping by accessibility experts or certified accessibility engineers that your product is compliant and being tested by experts. And then once everything is done and VPAT is being reviewed by your product teams along with your consultant, you ensure that you remediate your VPAT and make it fully compliant and accessible for the world. So this is a 6-step cycle. And Erin, in case I have missed anything, would request you to please add.
So I wouldn't say you missed anything at all. And, this is very high level, and, we'll dive in a little bit more about what happens during the audit. But one thing that's really important is, when you look through these steps, it is very much a partnership, and it is very important to be thinking about what are we going to do with this data to improve the accessibility of our product. And, when you're specifically looking at step 6 and, what is that conformance report and what are we putting out? It is okay if your conformance report is not a complete supports across the board. That is almost unrealistic and not the goal. That conformance report, which we will talk in detail in another session, is about the data and the report card of where you are. It's also, as Tarveen was saying, you might have a product with multiple kinds of components. And, as we're specifically thinking about the European Accessibility Act and what are the requirements for accessibility coming forward, we know that EPUBs are one of those things that are front and center. So maybe as you're going through this and you have a product with EPUBs and videos and digital interactives and whatnot, when you're thinking about what do I want to analyze during this audit, where am I in step 1? You might want to do a thin slice of all of those components within your program so you at least have the data. But then as you start going to step 4 and what does your remediation look like, you may want to just take that data to focus on remediating that priority piece. And that is all okay. That's part of where that partnership, the consultation, and the conversation comes into play, because what you want to do is think about, again, what is your goal from this data and how are you going to use it to support the growth of your program?
All right, ladies, thank you so much for covering that so well. Now, what happens during an accessibility audit?
I'll take this one. So there's a lot that happens during the accessibility audit. Typically when Magic does the audit, and this does apply for other companies as well, but typically we will start with using automated tools. And some of those automated tools you may be familiar with might be the Axe Dev tool that is a browser-based. There are color contrast analyzers. There's the ARC tool, there's the Stylus tool. There are different automated programs that can scan a product or a website and find some issues. And it's really important to understand that those automated tools only find about 25 to 30% of issues. It might say there is missing alt text, but it doesn't tell you if that image is decorative and it's okay that it doesn't have alt text, or is it truly an informative image, and then what is that impact? It just identifies some high level, basically code-based issues. The most important part of the accessibility audit is the manual testing. And as Tarveen alluded to, it's really important to include users with disabilities, not only in your user testing as you're building a product, but in the audit process itself. Because, we have people that can work on screen readers and understand how a screen reader operates and how to listen for different things. We also have users who use screen readers in their daily lives, and the way that they go through may be different because everybody has a different way to navigate different stuff digitally. So it's important to get your information from people who understand your native technologies, as well as people who are looking for different things through the accessibility remediation team, the auditor team, that are really versed and certified in how to do these audits. Some of those manual testing items will include, as we kind of alluded to, is the image an informational image? Yes, it is. Okay, the alt text is missing and you need to fix it, and it needs to be correct in content. When you're testing navigation with the keyboard, do all of the functionalities work just as a keyboard? Are all of your interactive elements keyboard accessible? Can I navigate to them? Great, yes or no. And then also, when I have a screen reader on and I'm navigating with my keyboard, is everything activating the way they need to? These are just some of the things that we look for during an audit. An additional and extremely important part of the audit is the last bullet point here on the screen, which is logging those bugs. We put out information that includes what is the standard, the WCAG standard that is not in compliance. Where exactly is this bug found? How did we get to that step? So what are the reproduction steps so your team can take the audit report, go back through in the same environment and say, here it is, let me fix it. We give rationale on why does it need to be fixed, give recommendations on how to fix. All of that information coming together provides you a really comprehensive view into what needs to be done. And those are the big steps that we take during the audit. Tarveen, is there anything you want to add?
No, I think, Erin, it is covered perfectly well. And I think, yes, you have covered everything. Ensure that during the audit process, 80 tools are being used, whether you pick up JAWS, NVDA, or text-to-speech like Dragon Speech tools. But ensure that your product is being tested, and don't rely 100% on automation tools, because they only end up giving 30% of the issues, and that too you can't ensure all the 30% are being covered. So please ensure the manual review is being done thoroughly while you perform the accessibility audits.
All right, thank you so much for that, ladies. I think that we have another poll question coming up. What percentage of accessibility issues are identified by automated tools? The first option is 10, the second option is 30, the fourth option is 50, and the third option is 50, and the fourth option is 75. We'll give you a minute to answer that.
Whosoever is up and had a coffee will be able to answer it right.
This was a test to see if you were paying attention. Just kidding. We don't test people around here.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. And we got 30%. Thank you for that, Tarveen.
Yeah, okay. Just to reiterate, it is super important to understand automated tools are fantastic and very reliable, but they do only find about 30% of the errors. So don't sign up for an audit if it's not going to include manual testing.
All right. Tarveen, can you talk to us a little bit about what best practice should be followed in order to avoid audit process gaps?
Yes. So what we have seen, we have also failed. Trust me, it's a journey that everyone follows, but we should learn from our mistakes, and that's what we have captured in here. Don't rush towards that, oh, my deadline is coming, I need to meet the compliance, let's start, and start in a rush, you will fail. First, take a pause, plan how things needs to be done, what is the way to proceed, and how effectively and efficiently you can meet the end goal that you're defining for yourself. So clearly outline and define a scope. Help your team understand the urgency, need of the hours, and compliance. Then only start with the audit. When you start with the audit, try to understand what is this product all about, what is the user persona, what is the workflow, and what is the user experience. When we talk about user experience, that's where we request that ensure people with disabilities are being part of your core evaluation process. And Ensure you have end-to-end process laid out for your team. Give a quick walkthrough to your teams to understand what is the happy flow and what are the negative scenarios you need to test and ensure product is fully compliant. Always don't do your audits in silo. Always work along with your product team so that they get sense of urgency, they get sense of what needs to be fixed and why actually we are reporting this issue. Perform audit from the initiation phase to the end of your product life cycle. That's what we need to. We also did one of the webinar why it's important to shift left. That's why we say that start from the design phase. That's the step one, which will enable you save a lot of time, effort, and your product issues can be resolved really early. Instead of going back and then redesigning, it's a tough job. Time to market will get reduced and your effort and cost will also increase. So ensure that you start early when we talk about accessibility or even testing. Combine manual and automated test approach. We don't say that don't test with these automated tools. Erin rightly said that these are the good tools to have. It might help you uncover something that is being missed at one specific issue by your auditor, which is absolutely okay. That's why we always recommend to have a mix of automated and manual test report. And might be when you actually start with the planning phase, do a quick review to analyze where are you today in against those 30% success criteria. Include people with disabilities. Ensure that when product is not compliant, they are given required information so that they can report what exactly is not being done right. And have the auditors explain the entire audit report to your product teams. That's very key. Otherwise, you will just end up delivering a report and people will not perceive whatever message you want to give them. So ensure you give a complete walkthrough and enable them at each and every step of remediation.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, when you are engaging with a company to work on an audit for you, make sure that you ask them to explain what they're giving you. Take the time with them to walk through, and if you don't understand, ask questions. If you're working with a company or a team that does this day in and day out and is very familiar with the standards and what needs to happen, they should be able to guide you and give you that information you're looking for. The only way that you learn information is to ask questions because you don't know what you don't know.
Absolutely.
All right. Erin, can you talk to us a little bit about what we do once we have the data from audits?
Absolutely. So, this goes back to what we were saying at the beginning, which is, what are you going to do when you get an audit? So that's something you should think about before you get engaged in starting an audit, is what is our plan? So we've talked about the audit itself gives you the data on gaps and gives you information on recommendations and on how to fix. It also will help you with your prioritization of that roadmap. So again, when you get that data, sit down with your team and talk through what does it say and what does that translate to in relation to your product. Your product is different than my product, which is different from somebody else's product. So there's no cookie cutter way to say this is the first thing to do. Obviously, there are some things that will come out that could be complete critical blockers. So for example, you may not even have keyboard navigation built into your product. That does automatically block a lot of people. So we would recommend, let's fix that first. So when you're doing this, think about what does this data tell me and how do I put it together to best support my company, my needs right now. As Tarveen also mentioned, when you're going through your remediation work and you're doing that, if you're choosing to do the remediation on your own with your team of engineers, fantastic. And if you don't know the answers or you have questions, reach back out to your team that did the audit, because they can guide you as you go through. And at the end of the day, once you have gone through major fixes, gone through your roadmap, you do want to consider getting that accessibility conformance report. again, that's kind of a report card that just shows the data of this is where we hit the standards. This might be where we're still working to support the standards, or standards are not applicable. And we will do a whole deep dive session on ACRs and VPATs at another time, but just understand that you don't have to have that report. It does come in useful in many arenas, but having the data, having the information that you can communicate out to your clients and being able to say, we have a plan for accessibility. It's not an overnight fix. And I think it's really important to call out that, don't think about a one-stop shop that's going to say, hey, add in this code and it's going to fix your website or it's going to fix your product, because it's not. I'm going to put a link into the chat from a New York Times article from a couple of months ago about there are some tools out there that are called overlays, and some users who use assistive technologies on a daily basis actually find those to be more of a blocker. And the reason for that is that, thank you, Anjali. The reason for that is that every screen reader user sets up their program, their screen reader, to their priorities and what they like and what they are used to. And oftentimes when they go to a product that has what's called an overlay, like the one line of code that can provide different ways to go through, it actually blocks what that user has intended. So we're not going to go all into overlays. Just understand that fixing accessibility is not an overnight. It's not a one-stop quick flip of the switch. It does take time. It does take priority. It takes thinking about, and it's okay to do it in stages.
Absolutely. All right, ladies, thank you so much for all of that information. I feel like it was very helpful. Now we are ready to move on to the QA portion of our session. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the Q&A box. And we already have one waiting for us. All right.
Oh, sorry, Anjali, go ahead.
No, I was going to go ahead and read the question. I may butcher the pronunciation of this name. Parampreet asked, how much time does the audit lifecycle take for, say, 12 to 6 modules / pages?
So without having seen the content, the answer is it depends. It depends on how complex are those pages. Are they templated? Are there a lot of different elements embedded within them? No audit is a hard and fast, it takes 3 days to do this. It truly depends on the scope. It depends on your time frame. Now, having said that, if there's only about 16 pages, it probably, even going through and once we understand the complexity, it probably would only take a couple of days. But don't take that as a hard and fast answer, right? It really is something that you want to talk with your team about to understand the full scope. As Tarveen mentioned a long time ago, just thinking about those 12 to 16 pages. Is it a thin slice? Is there places that you could identify and say, we used this question type 15 times, we only need to test it once, or do you want a full testing? Those different types of questions that you want to think about when you're identifying your scope, and that step 1 of the circular audit lifecycle will help to identify how long will it take.
All right, thanks for that, Erin. Beverly asked, if we are producing multiple EPUBs and they all follow the same process, should every EPUB still be audited?
So I'd like to answer. So Beverly, what happens is we already said that we need to understand what process are you guys following while generating the EPUBs. Is it the same guidelines that are being used by the people who are remediating or building them from the scratch? But ideal recommendation is always to first get the EPUB tested by the automated tool, that is ACE. Once you have the report from this, it states that most of the items are compliance, but it's better to get the product or the pages, and we recommend that picking up 10% of the sample pages to be audited using the screen reader. And if you have the complexity type, like from chapter 1 to chapter 5, these are the components that are being used, and then chapter 5 to chapter 10, these are the components used. We need to ensure that we pick up the right set of components and then test them across. And if it's the same components being used across all the EPUBs, again, we should pick up the sample one component from each EPUB and get the same validated and tested across range of screen readers, and then decide on how remediation has happened. If everything is good, we're absolutely okay. But otherwise, if it's a lower grade book, we need to review color contrast, because every page has a different color, but we know the color palette that is being used is consistent. But still, how content is being laid out and what could be the reading order. There could be pages where the content is center line, glossary terms are on the left side or right side. You need to see how things are being written and done. And few complex stuff like tables, and the images, you need to ensure the images are being reviewed for color contrast. For tables, ensure the table tagging is being done right. Even for the list items, the things are consistent, but still we have seen issues coming up on different pages and different type of issues.
All right. Awesome. Thank you, Tarveen. All right. Anonymous asked, do you have experiences with native mobile apps, and how difficult do you find to interpret all of WCAG to mobile devices? In parentheses, title, skipped content, lists, and a lot of things not really available on mobile apps APIs. Some links you could share.
Yes. So yes, we do have experience on testing native mobile applications, and trust me, when WCAG 2.1 came into picture, it was specifically target mobile applications. It's not that all guidelines are applicable for your product. You need to understand. For example, if I talk about skip to main content will only be there for the web pages, but for mobile application, there will be a home button. That's how it should work. And mobile applications are not multi-pages application. It's a single page application that you traverse actually horizontally, not vertically. So that's one thing. And yes, all the guidelines doesn't apply to mobile. Only specific works, and you need to ensure that when you start working on the guidelines, start marking that this component is not applicable for my product. Then you will not only move towards the compliance for the guidelines that your product needs, not spending time of what that is not in your product and it is not required.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, I'm not exactly sure what type of links you're looking for, but the first place that we would send you would be to the guidelines themselves, and calling out specifically which elements apply to mobile, or are the places, as Tarveen said, some things would not apply. So if you're thinking about how you figure out what to test, it kind of depends on where are you within your view.
All right. Awesome. Thank you, ladies. Okay. And we have another question. Again, gonna probably butcher this. Humphrey also said, thanks, Aaron. Secondly, is there a mechanism to rank a website WRT ally based on the audit results?
Yeah, so a mechanism to rank a website based on your accessibility results, that's really your conformance report. That's really what your data says. That I tend to stray away from the word rank, because you don't want to say one is better than the other. What you really want to say is this website, these are the places where it is compliant against the standards. This website is compliant against the standards. You can take the data from your conformance report or from your audit report and translate it into some sort of percentage. There are also tools out there that can consistently monitor your website as websites consistently change, right? You're consistently making changes and updates. There are tools that you can subscribe to that will do that and give you reports that say, hey, this page now has 15 new changes. You might want to make some updates. So those are available. But in general, if you're thinking about the ranking, you really want to consider, what does your website A, versus your website B, what does your audit data tell you, and what fixes have you made?
Absolutely. Thank you. And they said, thanks, Erin. Appreciate your inputs.
Of course.
All right. Do we have any other questions for the time being?
I don't see any. We do want to invite you. We are going to be doing another session in July. I don't have the date right in front of me, but we will be back and we will be talking, I believe we're going to be talking about the conformance reports, VPATs, and what that means. What does that look like for you? What we will do is once this recording is pulled together, we will share this out to you along with, you will also receive a link when we have that date finalized and information up for the next session. You'll receive an invitation to join in on that, and please share that with your friends.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much for joining us for this installment of Magically Live. We hope to see you at the next one.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Bye.